Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Climate Gallery. I am heartbroken that I can't be with you in person or in live virtual time for this, but I am stuck in Antarctica, which is kind of a ridiculous reason to miss an art show. As you're watching this, I'm currently working down at McMurdo Station, and I'm the field coordinator for a NASA research camp studying atmospheric sciences. I am not a researcher. I'm not studying anything. I'm kind of a logistics management and facilities manager and assistant to my camp manager. So supporting science and multiple science teams launching huge balloons that can fit an entire football stadium inside of them up 130,000 feet into the atmosphere to study our galaxy and others up in space. So please accept my apologies formally for not being able to be there, but I am just thrilled to be part of this Climate Gallery exhibit. And I am so grateful to Siobhan and Logan and Mira and all of the other people involved in this project. It is wildly exciting to me to be here and to be exhibiting. So thank you for being here and for signing up for my artist talk. And I'm sorry that it's pre-recorded, but I'm very much there with you in spirit. So thanks. These 5 chunks kind of summarize my practice and how I produce art. The first one is curiosity. I really, really, really follow my curiosity more than anything else. I became really obsessed with glaciers and the cryosphere, the frozen Earth as a whole. And that curiosity has really led me to work in Antarctica, work up in Alaska as a glacier guide, read a lot about ice, moving ice, stagnant ice sheets, ice flows, glacier ice. What makes all of that ice different than the ice cubes in our freezer, right? Like ice as a whole, I've been so interested in for years now. And instead of applying to some glaciology program at a college or university, or pursuing a really structured formal education, which I would love, but financially is not an option for me right now, I've instead just followed my curiosity and used art as a lens to explore the world. And that has been it's been more exciting to me than I could have ever imagined had I considered that years ago. So first step, curiosity. Second, research and information gathering. I don't want to be a bozo when I go into these spaces that I don't know about. There is no way I can go in and not be ignorant about something, but I would like to be as the least bit ignorant as possible. And so I do a lot of research and information gathering by reading and listening to podcasts and talking to people really as much as I can in advance. From there, I think the most important piece of my puzzle as an artist is firsthand experience. So I'm interested in a lot of things, but I so far don't make art about things that I don't have personal experience in. And that is because, my next curiosity I can already tell is wildfires. I'm getting real curious about them. I'm catching myself reading about fire science on accident. I'm noticing a little trend here. But for example, I'm not going to start creating work about that because I'm really curious to go out in the field. I want to find a wildfire team that I can go watch and maybe participate in and understand on a much more personal level before I start making art, because I know that will really deepen my practice and the pieces that I'm putting out. So yeah, firsthand experience, by far, to me, the most important piece of the creative puzzle. From there, I really take a lot of reflection and time to reflect before I produce any work. And that has ended up being a wonderful thing, but I didn't do it intentionally. I did it because there are so many other things going on in my life that I simply haven't made time. Once I've gathered all this information and gone out in the field and learned all these things firsthand, I often am rushing off to another job or another seasonal lifestyle, or I'm moving to another state. Like, my life just has felt wonderfully chaotic, and it is chaotic because of choices that I currently make. All that to be said, I don't always have time to create the work right at that moment. And what I've ended up learning, looking back, is that long process and that extra time has really given me a lot more opportunity to reflect and pick out the stories that have really resonated with me and ask more questions that I have follow-up questions on, and look through my photos a million times and figure out which ones tell the most interesting stories and which ones I'm most drawn to, right? Like, as you sit on something, your memories, you have more clarity around them. Certain ones talk to you more. And so, yeah, I really think that time is actually becoming kind of an important part of my creative process on accident, but maybe conveniently so. I don't know. I'm enjoying that part of it. I think the other cool part of taking so much time in between the firsthand experience and making the art is that I get so excited about these ideas, and it tends to be a little bit before I get to them, right? And so then once I'm making the cakes or the desserts, I'm just like, thank God I'm finally making this thing that I've been thinking about for weeks or months or a year, or whatever it is. And I have been able to really quickly access a flow state, which has been so special. So follow your curiosity, gather a lot of information, learn as much as you can, then go out in the field, get that firsthand experience, be there in person, in place, build deeper relationships with the people that you are interested in, authentically and truly, and then take some time to reflect and think about that experience and look at your photos and do all those things, and then actually create the work. Huge ball of information and experience. It produces really deep and rich work for me. So I joined as the artist in residence for the North Cascades Glacier Climate Project in August of 2021. And that looked like a lot of planning on my end during a super, super busy glacier guiding season up in Alaska. So I was there for the majority of the field season, but not quite all of it. And our kind of daily routine was that every morning we would get up early, make coffee, pack, talk about our game plan, and then just head straight out, get a pretty early start every day. We would pack in super full days. So it would be a bunch of miles of hiking, a lot of elevation change, a lot of on-ice glacier travel, and a lot of research along the way. So everything from probing to taking snowpack measurements to taking ice observations and GPS coordinates and laser measurements. There was a lot of different types of science that we were looking at and a lot of different observations that we were making and recording. So they were full packed, jam-packed days. And then from there we would hike all the way back to our kind of base camp area, which was still in the backcountry, but kind of our little tent city that we would make for a night or two in each location, make dinner, eat all together, maybe chat for a little bit, and then just pass out and get a lot of sleep for the next day. We never had a day off, minus our crazy rain day where we were all stuck in our tents for 20 hours straight. Still not a day off, but at least a little break for the muscles to relax and a good stretch break. But it is a full-on, like, go field season. When Maury and the team fly out there, they are hitting the ground running. They are ready to get in. On the days that we hiked out from one location, we hiked right into another location as well with a quick resupply. Not a lot of downtime at all, if any, and really I respected a lot the amount of time and energy and resource that went into all of that, and kind of the commitment to just getting as much done as possible. So I am exhibiting with the Climate Gallery now because when I completed my residency just over a year ago, I really wanted to find a larger platform to share all of the work and research and stories of the glaciology team. This residency, like all other residencies that artists apply for, I applied for on a whim. I didn't think I was going to get it, but it's important to try. And when I happened to get selected, I was just thrilled because I was really wanting to put in every effort to share both my art and the research and work of these scientist stories on bigger scales than possible. Like, yeah, I want to share my work on Instagram, but I also want to get publicity around the story and get it out in an art show and to just put it on a bigger scale so more people have the opportunity to interact with it. I specifically wanted to exhibit this show because it's super timely. The North Cascades Glacier Climate Project is coming up on its 40th year next year, which means that Maury Pelto, the founder of the project and the science director, He has not missed a backcountry field season in 40 years, in 4 decades. He started this project as a grad student, and he has followed through on that commitment without missing a beat for 1.25 of my lifetimes. That's mind-boggling to me. I can't imagine the level of commitment and follow-through that takes, and I can't imagine working on one project for 40 years. It's really inspiring. And for me personally as an artist, I really wanted to be exhibiting in more art shows. I wanted to get my cakes out of the kitchen and into a more traditional space for art. I want my cakes to be in museums and institutional settings and educational spaces where they can, stand to inspire other forms of emotional or environmental creativity, I guess, and emotional as well. Secondly, cakes expire, they mold, they go bad, and I am constantly jealous of artists that post these incredible studio shoots, right, where they're in this colorful creative space and it is just packed full of art that they've made over weeks or months or years, and it's surrounding them on all sides, and they just look great in their studio, and it's full of art, and they can exhibit it multiple times in multiple spaces, and then they can sell it years down the road. And the truth is, as much as I love this medium, it is such a challenge because I don't have the opportunity to exhibit them in multiple spaces or over a long period of time or sell them years later, or maybe even sell them at all. Like a lot of my work I don't sell, I just produce it because it's important to me. And it's a challenge. It's hard to use an edible format as your medium, especially when you move every 4 months to work in Alaska and Antarctica back and forth. It's a crazy way of living, and I'm excited about it. It's challenged me in really awesome ways as an artist, but it's also presented a lot of hardship. And I tell you all of this because this climate gallery has been a really special way, wildly exciting way for me to give more longevity to my art. I can't believe I have the opportunity to make cakes, put them in a 3D virtual space, and then exhibit them for, hopefully years. Hopefully this link sticks around and you all aren't going to be the only ones to ever see it. I hope that there's just a lot more opportunity for this work to live on. So that's what compels me to be here and why I'm really excited to be part of this gallery. In some ways more so than an in-person art show. Which is one of my biggest goals as an artist. So thanks to Climate Creative and thanks to Siobhan for dreaming up this crazy project. I appreciate it. I began focusing on climate in my artwork in 2018 when I moved from New York City, where I had been living for 6 years, and I decided to take the leap and move to Antarctica. That was a quick road to climate interest, right? Like you can't really work in Arctic or Antarctic logistics or anything of the sort without becoming connected to the place and reading articles that are immediately relevant to you. That being said, I think my interest in climate has had both a big picture phase and also a very small personal phase. Antarctica has been the big picture phase, and Alaska has really brought it to a much more individual level. So there's kind of the two lenses I look at my climate work in and hope that they continue to grow. Working in Antarctica is very big picture. There are a million different contractors and organizations that are hired to run so many different aspects of a huge, huge, huge operation. Antarctica is also a massive continent, and it's just too big. I haven't even seen 1% of the continent that I've spent, 4 seasons working on. So in that sense, climate change is a huge story in Antarctica, and it's changing quickly, and the Larsen B ice shelf is splitting off in pieces, larger than some U.S. states, right? Like big climate changes, big climate change stories are happening at the bottom of the world, and it's impossible to work here without talking about that and caring about it, like I said. But going to Alaska and becoming a glacier guide really made that much more personal. So I was fully prepared to see a glacier change from when I started in May to when I finished at the end of September. And I knew that my photos would look a little different, and it would have melted some feet back at the toe, right at the end of the glacier. I was prepared for a little bit of change and to see that, and I figured it would be kind of hard to grapple with that. But what I was not prepared for was to, every 3 or 4 days, have to step onto the glacier in a slightly different place, right? And physically point those places out to my clients over the course of a season. So we would be hiking to the glacier, and I would say, this is where we got on to the glacier in May when we started training this season. This is where we got on in June, and this is where we got on in July and August. And now we're going to keep going down there, and we're going to get ready by that big rock. And way back there is where we got on last year, right? Like just an insanely massive amount of melt and rapid rate of change. When I got that job, I was planning to only go for, to do that job for 1 season. And after my first season, I was like, man, I've got to go back for another, and I want to see how much more it's going to change. And I just, even talking about it, my mind is blown. It's too fast. That glacier is dying. I mean, we might have another year or 2 to lead trips on it. It's not possible. And I can't imagine climate change and climate stories as a whole, not just the depressing stories, but just positive climate stories also. I can't imagine climate not being a part of my work and not being a part of my heart and the things that I care about and want to communicate moving forward as an artist and as a woman and as a human being on this planet. So I think art has a major, maybe to no surprise, I think art has a major role to play in the climate movement, and a very significant value. I think there are a lot of cliches that go along with climate change, right? Or that go along with communicating art and climate change. Like, art engages new viewpoints, and it gives a voice to the voiceless. All true, blah, blah, blah. But I kind of wanted to answer this question through the lens of the false narratives based around climate change. So the first one that I've heard a lot and read a lot about is just that it's too big of a problem, right? Like, we can't wrap our minds around it. It's too big for us. It doesn't apply to our daily lives. It's too big. And I think art, in that sense, has a really huge potential to zoom in super close on one tiny aspect of one topic within the climate change narrative. So not just this huge global doom process, but hey, I'm an artist, and this one story is super interesting to me, and I've made this piece, and it zooms in really closely, and so I think it kind of bites off a chunk that people can chew on. The second narrative is just that, climate is changing, and I can't do anything about it, right? And there is a little bit of truth to that. I understand that viewpoint. Maybe not truth, but I understand that opinion and voice. But through the lens of art, I don't agree at all, right? So art gives each of us a really easy way to engage and amplify the stories of the places and things that resonate the most with us. So maybe we're just one person, we can't solve climate change, but we are just one person that can create a thing that can drive more awareness toward climate change, and that has bigger impacts and has this huge snowball effect. And in that sense, individual actions are really powerful, which leads me to my next point, that climate change can only be fixed by changes from massive corporations, not tiny little individual actions, right? Like, my little tote bag is not going to solve climate change. True. We need to hold big corporations accountable for carbon pollution and greenhouse gases and every single thing that I think most people at this art show are probably pretty aware of. So I agree with that. But when used effectively, art can apply massive pressure to huge corporations, and it can show the feelings of a mass population, right? So climate art is exponentially more present in the world. It's being exhibited at in business foyers and educational settings and in museums and institutions. And art is being exhibited to global leaders at the United Nations and in political offices, on doors and on billboards and on social media. Oh, one moment. Wow. Motion detection lights. Okay. Thanks. Sorry. So art is being shown in all of these spaces, right? Climate art specifically. And these art shows show big corporations and they show global leaders the values that are coming from the people. And climate art can put a lot of pressure on those organizations and those individuals to make changes and advocate for things, because we are visually showing them, hey, this matters to us and we're talking about it and we care about it and we give shit and we want you to do something. In that sense, art specifically tells big change makers that climate is a priority to us and a value to us, and that we care and that we love it and we want it to be in the big halls and the big leagues and the big meetings. And art shows value of a population. The last one I want to mention is just the idea that it's too late, that we can't do anything now. We've already destroyed our planet. Our course is set. Yeah, true. If we change everything tomorrow, Exit Glacier in Alaska is going to continue to melt at a very rapid pace because our atmosphere and our environment is too warm. That's true. But maybe it's not about reversing our course of action entirely. If we've made the bed that we're in, there's still changes to be made, and there are a lot of ways to improve our course and lessen our impact so that this planet has an easier time recovering in the future, whether we're here or not. We can, piggybacking on my last point, we can create climate art that puts human values in the faces of everyone else, and in that sense, it's not too late, right? We can continue applying pressure and continue getting stories out that are meaningful to us and continue lessening our impact, which is hopeful and exciting. How to get involved? Great question, and a hard question. Except it's actually not hard at all. Do anything. If you are not an artist, you're clearly here because you like art and you see inherent value in it. But if you don't identify as an artist, that's fine. I didn't identify for an artist until like 2 or 3 years ago. That doesn't mean that you can't make things or contribute time and skill or be involved in the climate movement in some other capacity. I think that art can be a really intimidating term, and I just decided, screw it. I'm an artist. I'm going to start calling myself that, even though it's hard and awkward. And it's much easier to tell you that on my computer screen without you sitting here with me than it is to tell people in person. So, like, still struggle with that. It is hard to be an artist and describe yourself as such. But you are an artist. Like, you can make things. And it doesn't have to be art. If you love skateboarding and watching birds, great. Do something with that. Like, it's cool to combine your weird passions into something new. And it's really impressive when someone, it doesn't have to change the world, right? Like, I think it's easy with social media and whatever world we live in now to think like, oh, if I don't make it big with this weird thing, it's not worth it. Or like, if my stuff doesn't go viral, what am I even doing? And I think that all the time. Like, very much a thought trap that I fall into regularly. But it's just not true. I have to constantly remind myself, like, it's still worth making art. It's still worth pursuing this thing if 4 million people aren't looking at it. And so all that to say, if you can use one weird thing that you're good at to talk about something you love, do it. People are going to pay attention, and the less that things fit together perfectly, the weirder it is, or the less sense that it makes. Like, if people are confused about it, that means they're paying attention. So don't be scared if it's confusing or weird or yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like, making cakes on glaciers makes no sense, and I tell people about it and they don't get it, and I have to follow up via email. Like, cool, then I'm following up via email, and it's pretty powerful. Like, that's great. It's okay for people to be confused by what you're doing or not understand the ways that you're acting or getting involved in something. I think there's a lot of power in confusing people or doing something new that people don't get. It's really fun. And you know, if I'm an artist, then here I am in an art show telling you that. And if I have a hard time identifying as an artist sometimes because I'm also a baker slash pastry chef, then that's a pretty good thing for me to be telling you, right? Like, oh, it's kind of awkward sometimes. Hey, I'm a pastry chef and I'd like to exhibit in your museum. Or hey, I'm a baker and I'm going to work in Antarctica and talk about space science. You know, it's like, what the heck? What is going on? And it's really fun and it's really powerful. And all that to say, you can get involved in whatever the hell weird way that you want to get involved. You can do any and all things, and it's better than whatever you're not doing right now, right? If you're not taking action, just do something. Feels good, looks good. Really, that's all it is, right? Look good, feel good, safety third. I'm just going to end there. Okay, what do I want you to know about my show? I want you to know that it took much more time and energy than I was ever expecting. I would say up to 10 times as much work, to the point where making the cakes was the easiest part. And I am in awe of, specifically of Siobhan Keegan, our virtual reality designer. I don't understand how she does any of the things she does. I don't understand how people work in virtual reality. It is very hard and very mind-boggling to me. And I'm really appreciative of everyone's talents and experiences and backgrounds that have come together to create a really unique art show from a lot of different artists with really non-traditional backgrounds. And even the most traditional artist here, Clara Maish, you know, a painter, approaches her art in such a non-traditional way, goes out into the field and creates repeat paintings of spaces being changed very rapidly. All that to say, I'm so inspired by the people who aren't afraid to try a different approach or make false advertisements for really unique things and create textile and fabric art that tells such a deep and resonant story about climate change. Or that there's just so many aspects of art that are being exhibited as part of this gallery, and I am thrilled that cakes are one of those pieces of the story. So I really hope that you just play in the space and have fun. I hope that you take a minute in the ice cave portion and look up and down and around. If you look up, you'll see my friend Tatum, who is belaying me. I took that photo from inside of a magnificent blue crevasse this summer. I hope you enjoy watching one more much shorter video in the ice cave, and that you really just take a minute to be in the exhibit and check out. I mean, the whole space is at the base of the Lower Curtis Glacier, and I'm really proud of the way that the cakes, photos, and captions work together to tell a story. I just had a blast creating this show, despite all of the hardships of figuring out how to make cakes into a 3D scannable object. I learned a ton, and I'm just really excited to share this gallery with you. I would like to say a quick series of thank yous to everyone involved in the Climate Gallery exhibit and building the thing and promoting the thing and continuing to share all of the work of all 5 artists involved. I would also like to say a huge thank you to the North Cascades Glacier Climate Project, Maury and Jill Pelto in particular, who have been so gracious in inviting me to participate in their program, and who, I want to say hand-held me, but they specifically didn't hand-hold me. They really challenged me to just jump in with them, and I really appreciate that. And they've been super helpful with questions as I've had them, and have been really generous with all of their research and data. So please, please, please learn more about that work and follow Jill Pelto on Instagram. She's an incredible data artist. Her watercolor piece glacier mass balance decline over 30 years is the same graph that I hand painted on one of the showpiece cakes in the exhibit. It's just one example of her work. She's brilliant, and this art show really taught me, just how much work and time and energy goes into getting the data in the first place, right? Not even what we do with it, but just getting to the point where we can produce a little graph that people just skip over when they're reading a really important article. Like, there's so much time and energy that goes into all of these things, and I have a much greater appreciation for that now. And so all of her art is based around graphs, and I just think it's brilliant. And many, many, many people in this world think it's brilliant. So if you haven't heard of Jill Pelto, go follow her. Keep in touch with all of the work that team is doing. Can't recommend it highly enough. And lastly, just a huge thanks to my Exit Glacier Guides team of friends and fellow guides who have taught me so much about interacting in these environments, spending time on ice, practicing crevasse rescue over and over again, along with my search and rescue team in Antarctica over the winter. Just so many people have been a part of my learning process over the last 4 years, and I'm just unbelievably thankful that I've had the opportunity to work my ass off and learn a lot of new skills that have given me the chance to bring cakes into the outdoors and bring the outdoors into this virtual space. So I made the idea of the cakes, but that's kind of where my involvement ends as far as it being a solo process, right? It's like so much collaboration and co-learning and talking out ideas with my partner Tim, and it's just been like this really cool and special 4 years of collaboration and teamwork. So without being cliche, a million people to thank for this. So yeah, put yourself in there if you're wondering if you're part of that thank you crew, because you are. And thank you to all of you, last but not least. Thanks for signing up for this talk and for my exhibit. Please get in touch with me. I would love to know that you attended. I'd love to virtually meet you and know who you are. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm kind of working with a preformed list here. So if there's anything I haven't touched on or that you see in the exhibit that you'd like more information about, shoot me an email or an Instagram message, and I will get back to you as soon as I get some Antarctic online service. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. Thanks again. Super excited to meet all of you. Really happy you're here. Get involved in the climate movement.